You know, the atheists and evolutionists here on YouTube are some of the most evil individuals you'll ever encounter. The things they say are just some of the most evil and twisted imaginings. How can we hold them to a higher standard if they believe that they come from pond scum? This textbook says humans probably evolved from bacteria that lived more than 4 billion years ago. Were they there? Did they see it happen? Why did they use the word probably? This textbook says, in the beginning there was a swirling broth of complex chemicals, and progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Now, do they know that, or do they think that? The first replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. The key word there is must, as in, I really, really hope it happened that way, because if it happened any other way, well, there goes my worldview, and I really hope and pray that it happened that way, because I refuse to even think that it happened any other way. Scottish anatomist and anthropologist Sir Arthur Keith of the 1900s as having said this: evolution is unproved and unprovable. We believe it only because the only alternative is special creation, and that is unthinkable. God flooded the world 4,400 years ago, and those who reject God are also willingly ignorant of this fact and all the geological evidence that points to it. That's why we find fossils in the mud. That's why we find oil deposits under enormous pressure. Just a quick note about the oil deposits. Oil is well known to be organic material compressed under enormous pressure over a period of time. However, if those oil deposits are millions of years old, like the evolutionists say, that oil pressure would have dissipated and broken through the rocks. There's no way that the laws of physics would allow that amount of oil under there to remain under that amount of pressure for that long. So the oil deposits are only a few thousand years old, and they were created by the worldwide flood. People like to ask, if there was a worldwide flood, where did the water come from and where did the water go? Well, the Bible says that God founded the earth upon the floods, meaning there was water underneath the crust of the earth as well. The Bible says that there was water above the atmosphere, which fell down to the earth during the worldwide flood, which is why it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. God says that the fountains of the deep broke open, and the earth's crust cracked, and that's where most of the water came from, which is why we have these ginormous fault lines running across the earth in the deepest parts of the oceans. The earth prior to the flood was most likely a landmass. As the Bible says, most of the water was underneath the crust of the earth. So when people say there's not enough water on the planet in order to cover the highest mountains, well, it didn't have to. You see, those mountains that exist today didn't exist before the flood. The Bible says that the mountains rose up and the valleys of the ocean sunk downwards. As the fountains of the deep broke open, the enormous amounts of water that were gushing all over the earth were sliding landmasses against each other, and that's what pushed the mountains up. The world also was oxidized, which is why even in Time magazine they confess that the air bubbles we find in amber contain 50% more oxygen than we're used to today, which explains why animals were so big, and that's how the dinosaurs were so enormous. And dinosaurs were reliant upon that oxygen environment being such large creatures. Even the biggest dinosaurs only had nostrils and lungs the size of your average horse. In this 1946 dictionary, it says a dragon is a still living but rare animal. I believe that dragons are dinosaurs. The word dinosaur was not invented until the 1800s, and before then dinosaurs were simply called dragons. They have lived along with mankind since the beginning of time. They were killed off largely during the worldwide flood, and we have hunted them since then, which is why they're extremely rare nowadays. We hear stories from history all about dragons and dragon slayers. Gilgamesh slayed a dragon. The Chinese zodiac has a dragon on it, but all the other animals are not mythical. So what does that tell us about the dragon? King Narmer on this crest here featured dragons. The famous Greek historian Herodotus spoke about these winged serpents that did not have feathers on their wings. In 1326 BC, Alexander the Great reported that his soldiers were scared by the great dragons that lived in the caves when they tried to conquer parts of India. In 1611, the emperor appointed a post for the royal dragon feeder, and books even tell the Chinese families raising the dragons to use their blood for medicine. So, did dragons or dinosaurs live with man? Well, that would certainly explain why we found one washed up on the shore one day. The Bible talks about dinosaurs, dragons quite frequently. They're mentioned dozens of times. I'll list the verses. It talks about the behemoth, the largest. And we realize that dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. They never even went extinct. And they're right here. You know, we hear about the Loch Ness Monster. All we need to do is take our bias and put it away. We've been spoon-fed this stupid theory for the last 200 years.